Welcome to Down Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Miss Jenny, and I am your astrologer. This video is for the preliminary trial for Bryan Kohberger set for June 26th, 2023 at 9 a.m. in Moscow, Idaho. All right, so a couple things that I thought was important about this particular chart. One, this is going to, and my time is not perfect, so bear with me, but this is going to happen super fast. And I'm not even completely sure that it's going to progress to a trial. The things that I'm seeing, if I'm reading this chart correctly, is that one, the judge is coming in with a huge amount of negative bias in this case. And, I understand that we're not supposed to have bias, we're supposed to be objective and all that good stuff, especially when the law is concerned, but we're still dealing with human beings. So if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like whoever the judge is going to be would be more than happy to see this kid's head like on a pike. Which you never want to see if this is a judge or if seeing a case, right? But at the same time, right, and that alone is going to indicate the judge will want to rule in favor of moving this to trial. The judge is going to want to see this kid hang for this. But at the same time, what I'm also seeing is some divine intervention and also some legal hiccups, right? So there's going to be some hair splitting and it's always in the details, right? Some little small fine details are going to prevent this from moving forward, or at least give it a huge pause for thought if that's what they're attempting to do. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I had to look this up myself, so I could be wrong. Always double check your information. A preliminary trial is a situation where the defense and the prosecution have to come before a judge and prove to the judge that they have enough evidence and solid reasoning to take this to full-on trial and move forward with the judicial system, right? So, and of course, the thing is, if you can't convince the judge that you've got a good case here, you're not going to convince a jury. I'm thinking that's the premise, right? Trying to avoid wasting taxpayer time and money and, court time and resources. So that's what this preliminary trial is to show the judge that there is good cause and reason and solid evidence that this needs to go to trial because we've got a solid case here. And again, it looks like the judge, whoever it happens to be, is going to be absolutely ready to stick this kid's head on a pike before the trial has even started. So we're already starting with some really god-awful negative bias here. However, it looks like there's going to be some issues, some sticking points that are going to make this difficult, and maybe even a little divine intervention that's going to close or shut this down before it even gets opened up. So I don't personally think that they're even going to make it to trial. And the reason I say this is because watch the 2 weeks before the preliminary trial is set to start. So mark your calendars from June 12th to 17th and see what happens during those 2 weeks, because I think something is going to happen in those 2 weeks that's going to completely upend this case and make it almost impossible to move forward with it. We'll see. Now, what's interesting to note is at this time that this preliminary trial is going into effect on the 26th, not 10 days before, about a week before, right in this window, this 2-week window, Saturn will be going retrograde on Bryan's Saturn, okay, because Bryan carries Saturn in Pisces, which is a signature for scapegoating in this lifetime. And if you know people, personally know people very well who have Saturn in Pisces, you can ask them about if they've ever felt like they've been scapegoated in our lifetime, or gaslit, which is also under the auspices of Saturn and Pisces, or both. They'll probably tell you some really horrific stories, or certainly some patterns of it, which never made any sense. That's Saturn and Pisces. It's a lot of other things too, but that's also there. Anyway, Saturn coming to a station on his natal Saturn really brings to the forefront and brings to bear some significant events and changes of circumstance and things happening with a hand of both hard, physical, tangible evidence, Saturn, right, and divine intervention, Saturn Pisces. So, and this is happening on 17th, so June 12th to 17th, there's some big stuff going on that's impacting Bryan, and quite possibly looking at this chart to his benefit, right, to his benefit, or protection, depending on, whether you think he's guilty or innocent. Also, too, what I thought was interesting is that in May, a month before this preliminary trial is scheduled to happen, right? And understand that this is not set in stone. They can absolutely move the date of this trial whenever they want. In May, we have an eclipse at 6:15 Scorpio. Now, this eclipse, what's interesting about this eclipse exactly opposes the Taurus conjunct Uranus eclipse in November that set off this murder, because the murder occurred within a week of the eclipse conjuncting Uranus and Taurus, and that absolutely was under the umbrella of the eclipse path. So this murder was absolutely an ecliptic event. And typically with eclipses, things that occur either involve or impact large masses of people, like natural disasters, or plane crashes, right? Or there's a tremendous amount of fate and divine intervention involved in the ecliptic activity. So for whatever reason, these 4 kids that died, and assuming that it was an act of revenge against one or all of them, this is a part of a much bigger picture here. So this gets interesting in terms of who's trying to protect what here, above and beyond, the immediate community and the students. There's a lot more here. A lot more here than they're letting on to, right? They need a convenient and easy scapegoat. And right now, Bryan is it. Because also, don't forget, this is Idaho. This is meat, potatoes, and dairy territory. If you don't eat meat, like, what the hell's wrong with you, son? Like, you're already an outsider because you're a vegan. Because everybody knows, oh, those vegans, those communist vegans, oh, those leftists, those woke politics. Like, they assume that if you're in anything deviating from meat, potatoes, dairy, hunting and fishing, and straight, white, and Christian, like, there's clearly, you're one of those people. So Bryan already, just because of his choice to be a vegan, even though he's dedicated his entire life to learning about justice, makes him an outsider by default. He's one of those weirdos. And the other thing, is that remember, do not ever forget this. That town runs on college money. If the college campus is not bringing students in, or worse, the college campus is losing students by the droves, which nobody's going back to a campus where there's a serial killer loose, right? Not only is the campus losing money, but that whole town is suffering economically because they're all driven by college money, right? So that's a bad thing if they start losing money because of this. So they need, financially, economically, common sense-wise, practically speaking, pragmatically, they need like closure to this case. They need this case closed, clean, neat, done, right? So that people feel safe coming back to campus. Except it went an entire month and they couldn't figure out anything. Like, they had nothing. Only now, all of a sudden, out of the blue, we find out about a knife sheath and all sorts of weird, conveniently. And also, too, conveniently, aside from being a vegan, which makes him an outsider and a hated one because, he's one of those people. The FBI would have known through their investigations that his family has no money. Right? And that makes him an easy scapegoat because he's got no money. His family has no money to afford the kind of criminal defense attorney he would need to defend him in this kind of situation. Which is why he's getting free legal defense now, I'm sure. Because even the people defending him for free know there's something wrong here. There's something really wrong here. And they know, I'm sure, as well as, I know, and I'm telling you, that there are ulterior motives for wanting to hang this kid on the hook, whether he's guilty or innocent. And right now he's not looking guilty enough for the death penalty for 4 murders he might not have committed. Just saying. So there is that. And this eclipse will absolutely connect to Bryan's Mercury. He carries Mercury at 16 Scorpio. The eclipse in May will be at 15 Scorpio. So this is absolutely going to be some type of life-changing event for Bryan come the time period between May and June. We may very well find out he's innocent, right? Absolutely, undeniably innocent, and he's been set up by somebody else. Maybe. Or we may find out he's undeniably guilty. We don't know. We'll find out. We will find out. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this particular hearing and the date it's occurring on is it will set up a grand trine in Bryan's chart. Bryan's planets, his Scorpio planets, will sit in the 4th house, which is the end of the matter. And for him, it makes sense because no matter which way this trial goes, this is going to be the end of the matter and the end of Bryan's life as he knows it, right? So on the one hand, if he's exonerated and he's found innocent, his life is still over because of all this time loss, notoriety. His face has been all over the place. Like, good luck getting a job at this point because there's already, and we've seen the internet, lynch mobs do this. There's a lot of people who are willing to believe what they want to believe, not what's true, right? Even when it's been proven that this is not true. So there's that. And then the other side of this is if he is guilty, obviously his life is over. There's no questioning that. We know how that works. So it will be interesting to see what happens between May and June up to the second week of the month, right? So May up to the week of June 16th or 17th. And this is before we get to the actual, I just lost the word, help me, the preliminary trial scheduled on the 26th. So let's keep an eye on that and see what happens, because there's a whole lot here. People are hiding. A whole lot of people hiding. That's why they're making such a constant fanning motion to whip up that smoke and make that fire bigger around Bryan, because it keeps everybody looking at that and not them. So there's that. And just one final word I want to just point out to you guys. Again, none of this it's a confirmation of guilt or innocence. It never is. We have to let the Justice Department, as faulty as it can be, we have to let it do its job. But the other thing is, I just want to point out, like when you're dealing with psychics and stuff, some things to consider. Psychics don't always get these linear movie time, like rolling out images, of events following each other in a sequenced fashion that makes complete sense. They don't have God's sight where they can look down and see the entire picture accurately, in detail, and in correct order. So with that said, it is entirely possible, because I've seen a bunch of psychics who are saying the same thing. Oh, I saw this blah, these random things. When psychics see things, typically it's like looking through a kaleidoscope, right? So you look through the tube, right, and you see this image, and as you turn the tube, you see little pieces of image changing as it's going along. So you'll see fragments and pieces of images and information and names and words, and sometimes letter, J, I see the letter J. And that's not a confirmation of innocence or guilt, okay? So it is entirely possible that a psychic might see an event and might see particular descriptions of people around this event. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are the guilty party, as much as they are very present in this particular event or this episode. If Kohberger is innocent, it's not unthinkable that his image would come up very, very present when they get images of the murders, because, even if he's innocent, he has been plastered all over the internet as assumed guilty before we've even gone through like half the investigation. So he is absolutely a very present and prominent player in this event or situation, but that doesn't mean he's guilty. It just means that for whatever reason, he's very visible. So when you listen to psychics talk about, this, that, and the other thing, like that's what they're seeing. That's not a confirmation of guilt or innocence. And anybody who tells you they can read someone's mind, and I was in his mind and I could see that he was thinking this and he was thinking that, child, please, you need to just walk away. Just walk away. I don't know what kind of psychotics you're dealing with, but that's not what psychics do. If we could read minds, boy, oh boy, you'd never leave the house, because you'd be able to read everybody's damn mind. You wouldn't like what they were thinking. Anyway. So there's that. But, it's all fun and games for everybody else except Bryan and his family. His poor family has been doxxed to the general public, and they had nothing to do with this. There's a lot of irresponsible players out on the field who are just having fun. This is all academic to them. But it's important, especially if you are the voice of authority, whether you're law enforcement, or you are an investigator, or you're a counselor, or a retired expert, or a TikTok tarot card reader, or an astrologer, or a psychic. As long as you potentially have information that the general public does not have access to, you are, in that moment, the voice of authority. And while it's very fun to be the voice of authority, everybody loves being the smartest person in the room. That's why conspiracy theories taken off like wildfire, because everybody wants to feel like the smartest person in the room. But did you know this? The fact of the matter is, as the voice of authority, you have a tremendous responsibility in terms of the impact your words have on other people. So when you start, running around pointing fingers, it was clearly him, he did it. You have to consider the fact that what if he's not, or she's not, right? How's this impacting his family? I mean, you see what they've done to poor Bryan Kohberger's family. What the hell did they have to do with any of this, right? So I'm just saying, take it all with a grain of salt, use your common sense, and if you are one of these people and this boy turns out to be innocent, there's a whole lot of holy hell a bunch of people have to pay for condemning him of guilt before it's been proven. I mean, you people were condemning him before we were halfway through the investigation, right? But let Dylan, whoever this Dylan character is, she she supposedly sees a masked man with bushy eyebrows in a dark room, closes the door, and then doesn't call the cops for 6 hours. And you people are like, oh no, don't judge her. You don't know. You don't know what she was thinking. You know, she was clearly in a panic. Well, you know, blah, 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 blah. So you'll give her the benefit of the doubt for waiting 6 freaking hours to call cops about a complete stranger, a masked stranger in that house, clearly up to no good. But this character, Bryan, like you're ready to hang him from a tree, like in the first 24 hours of him being named, without the investigation even like being halfway through. The hypocrisy is amazing. And for those of you feeding into this, you should be ashamed of yourself because this is what you've done. You've just whipped people up and you don't even know that this person is actually guilty. Because you know your ass is not that good. Nobody's that good. Because if you were that good and you could read minds and you could confirm guilt or innocence just by your spidey sense, we wouldn't need police officers or investigators or law enforcement or judicial systems. Hell, we would just use you, right? But we don't, and there's a reason for that. So I'm a little whipped up about this because this has just been just a circus, and this poor boy's family and him. Because in the event, like I said, if he's innocent, that is now 5 lives that have been ruined, not just 4. Y'all need to stop. Just stop. So anyway, we'll see. Let's see what happens come June 26th. Like I said, I think something's going to happen before then and between then and the eclipse. Eclipse May 15th. Watch the week of June 12th through 17th for major circumstantial or situational changes. Something is going to upend this case in that week. And then, of course, by the time we actually get to the preliminary trial on the 26th of June, it may not even be a trial. It literally may be a formality, just, you know, signing some things, checking boxes, and that's the end of the matter. So let's see what happens. Oh, and just a final note real quick. I realize it was brought to my attention, thank you very much for doing this, that I have Xana Kohberger's incorrect birth date, as well as I think Maddie's, but I'm not sure about that. I'm going to double check. I did look at Xana's, and I do, in fact, I'm limited to the internet for information, so I'm sorry. I do, in fact, have the wrong birth information. Bryan does have a connection to Xana's chart. Prominent dynamic connections, but they're supportive. They're actually really good connections, pleasant ones. There's only one dynamic tension-filled aspect between our charts, so there is a connection between Bryan and Xana that is not appearing in the other charts. So if this murder were driven by some type of connection to one of the housemates on Bryan, it would have to be Xana because there's no connection to him and the others that I can see. So if you guys want me to set up a separate accurate chart for Xana, I'm happy to do that. And I apologize for the error. It's difficult juggling 4 charts and getting all of this stuff, this information out there in like less than 3 hours, because unlike other folks, much like you guys, I got to work for a living. So I'm trying to fit this in between stuff. So I will occasionally make mistakes, and I'm sorry about that. And so like I said, I'll do a chart over again if you want me to rectify them. We'll take a closer look. But otherwise, we'll just let it go. So she is definitely connected to the eclipse chart. It definitely kicked in and activated her chart. There is a connection between her and Bryan, but it's mostly supportive. So I don't know that this was enough. With the one difficult aspect between them, I don't know if that's enough to induce the level of rage necessary to murder 4 people. And also, if we're using these cell phone tower pings, this means that he had to be so enraged by all 4 of these people that he literally murdered 4 people on 2 different floors in 2 different bedrooms with a knife in under 10 minutes. And in a way that allowed him to leave without leaving a blood trail out the door. So, just saying. I mean, I'm not an investigator. What do I know? I'm just saying, sometimes common sense works. All right. Talk to you guys later. If you like this, like, subscribe, share. Talk to you soon.